3:12 a.m., Strait of Hormuz. On board an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer patrolling the blockade line, the radar console suddenly erupts with red alerts. Dozens of fast-moving signals are racing in from different directions, closing in like a coordinated swarm surrounding its target. Iran has just launched a large-scale swarm maneuver. In less than 90 seconds, dozens of IRGC high-speed boats will be close enough to bring their launch systems into play. Can the U.S. Navy respond in time, or is the Strait of Hormuz about to become an impossible corridor for Western tankers? The geopolitical balance has shifted overnight. After diplomatic channels completely broke down, Washington's maximum pressure campaign pushed Tehran into a corner. In a high-stakes move for survival, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps activated Operation Hormuz Gatekeeper. Their mission is clear: seize full control over the world's most important maritime choke point. Iran is no longer simply making threats. It is demanding passage payments and warning that any Western oil tanker challenging its control could face severe consequences in the strait. 3:20 a.m. At the center of the crisis is an Arleigh Burke-class Flight 3 destroyer, a $2 billion piece of advanced engineering built by Lockheed Martin. But the ship is not operating alone. High above the clouds, Boeing's all-seeing platform, the P-8A Poseidon, acts as the U.S. Navy's airborne C-4 ISR command and control hub, continuously feeding mapping data to the fleet. The P-8A quickly identifies mobile launcher units onshore and a group of high-speed boats leaving concealed positions. To establish a reconnaissance perimeter, an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter lifts off and begins deploying sonar buoys and detection equipment, searching the murky waters for possible moored acoustic mines. 3:30 a.m. Above the Strait of Hormuz, the digital battlefield grows more complex. The P-8A Poseidon shifts from passive monitoring to active coordination. Its crew releases a series of AN/SSQ-53G sonobuoys. Originally built for anti-submarine missions, these sensors are recalibrated to detect the acoustic signatures of IRGC speedboat engines cutting through the rough water. Within moments, a real-time digital map begins to form with exceptional precision, marking the position of the Iranian formation. The data is immediately encrypted and sent to the fleet through the Link 16 network. 3:35 a.m. Using that information, the MH-60R Seahawk, flying near the edge of the engagement zone, carries out the first physical response from 8 kilometers away, staying beyond the reach of Iran's 12.7mm machine guns. Through the MTS electro-optical targeting system, the crew locks onto the command boats. Two AGM-114 Hellfire precision munitions launch into the night, leaving bright trails behind them. Guided by laser designation, they hit the lead vessels with accuracy, throwing the formation into confusion. The IRGC group begins to lose coordination as its command element is disrupted, and communication between the smaller boats starts breaking apart. 3:40 a.m. The IRGC responded immediately with an asymmetric countermeasure. Along the coastline, hundreds of Ababel decoy drones surged out from concealed cave positions, forming an electronic barrier around the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer's AN/SPY-6 radar picture. What began as 50 incoming signals suddenly expanded into nearly 500 unstable radar returns, blinking across the screen like a storm of false targets. The Aegis combat system was forced to work under extreme pressure, sorting real threats from decoys amid heavy interference, metallic clutter, and intense electronic noise. At the same moment, Fajr 5 launch platforms positioned on the coastal cliffs opened up with a wide-area rocket pattern. Instead of aiming directly at the destroyer, they saturated the water around it in a calculated grid. Within seconds, towering 15-meter columns of seawater erupted around the ship, creating a thick curtain of salt spray, mist, and steam. It was not just a visual barrier. It was a tactical screen designed to disrupt infrared sensors, laser rangefinders, and targeting systems, forcing the American crew to operate inside a chaotic mix of physical obstruction and digital confusion. 3:47 a.m. The confrontation reached its most dangerous point as Iranian coastal units began locking onto the U.S. fleet. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer immediately initiated counter-battery operations. Using coordinates provided by the P-8A Poseidon, the Mark 41 vertical launch system released a rapid salvo of precision interceptors, neutralizing the coastal launch sites the moment they appeared on the radar picture. At the same time, the SLQ-32 electronic warfare system pushed out a concentrated burst of electronic power, overwhelming the receivers of IRGC coastal radar systems. This coordinated blend of precision response and electronic disruption opened a temporary blind zone along the Iranian shoreline. For the U.S. Navy, it was the narrow window they had been waiting for. 3:50 a.m. With the main air bases already tied up by long-range interception missions, a pair of A-10C Thunderbolt IIs from Al Dhafra Air Base were urgently sent into the operation. These warthogs had trained specifically for swarm control scenarios. Unlike supersonic fighters built for speed, the A-10 can hold a slow, stable flight profile at around 300 knots. Paired with the Sniper Advanced Targeting System and night vision capability, it becomes a patient and highly effective hunter in the dark, able to track fast-moving boats across the vast open water, one target at a time. 3:55 a.m. Taking advantage of a brief gap in coverage, the two warthogs dropped from the clouds and cut low through the coastal terrain. To avoid early warning systems, they threaded their way along the Iranian shoreline, using 150-meter limestone cliffs as natural cover and staying below radar detection range. Then, without warning, they emerged at barely 30 meters above the water, their wings sweeping just above the foaming waves. The sudden roar of jet engines overhead sent IRGC crews into confusion. In the middle of the chaos, the A-10 pilots had to react to shoulder-launched air defense systems and explosive drones rushing toward their flight path. 4 a.m. The sky filled with tracer fire, flares, and electronic countermeasures. American pilots pushed their aircraft into punishing 7G turns just above the sea, fighting the pressure as their vision tightened and blood pooled toward their legs. Every maneuver was a race to stay ahead of the incoming drones, guided threats, and the shifting danger zone closing around them. They kept releasing chains of magnesium heat-seeking decoys, each burning at nearly 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Brilliant flashes burst across the night sky, reflecting off the black surface of the sea and turning the entire battle space into a field of blinding light. In the middle of that chaos, the A-10 formation steadied. The pilots brought their targets onto the HUD, adjusted their line of approach, and committed. Then the GAU-8/A Avenger cannon came alive. Its unmistakable roar rolled across the water, overpowering even the sound of the waves. Every second, dozens of 30mm rounds tore through the swarm's path, breaking apart the fast boat formation and leaving behind scattered burning wreckage, drifting debris, and long dark trails of fuel across the surface. 4:10 a.m. While the fight on the water continued, a new and far more silent danger began to reveal itself below the waves. The Seahawk immediately switched its multi-mode radar into high-resolution short-range scanning, searching for small objects barely visible near the waterline. The sensors began picking up faint metallic returns just inches above the churning surface. These were not waves. They were the rhythmic signatures of Iran's Mersad-class smart mines, advanced seabed-anchored devices designed to activate through acoustic or magnetic triggers. The pilot's voice cut through the secure communications network with emergency priority. The surface swarm is not the only problem. We have an underwater minefield at coordinates 7 Alpha. Hard turn immediately. 4:15 a.m. Inside the Combat Information Center of the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, the atmosphere changed instantly. The crew shifted from offensive control to pure survival. The captain ordered an emergency stop, then commanded a sharp, hard turn to starboard. The 9,000-ton destroyer leaned heavily into the maneuver. Its hull groaned under the pressure as the ship narrowly cleared a cluster of mines that could have caused catastrophic damage beneath the waterline. The AN/SQQ-89 system confirmed the worst-case scenario. The passage ahead was heavily mined, and at the same time, semi-submersible one-way attack boats were closing in. The destroyer had been forced into a classic pincer trap. If it remained in place to clear the mines, the incoming boats would close the distance. If it moved to evade them, it risked drifting straight into the hidden minefield. 4:20 a.m. This was the final tactical trap. Movement meant danger below the surface. Staying still meant becoming an easy target for the next wave of IRGC fast attack units. The tension inside the ship was almost physical as the second wave of the swarm, faster and more aggressive than the first, began accelerating across the water. These boats were designed to strike at the waterline, where the hull is most vulnerable, with the goal of causing rapid flooding and forcing the ship out of the fight. The American crew was now caught between two threats: mines hidden beneath the waves and attack boats racing in from the surface. They had only seconds to choose between two dangerous options. 4:25 a.m. With the fleet pinned down, the captain authorized the last resort option in non-physical warfare: full activation of the shipborne electronic warfare suite. This was far beyond basic jamming. The destroyer's electronic warfare arrays focused a high-intensity radio frequency beam across the strait, flooding the area with overwhelming electromagnetic pressure. The effect was immediate. The remaining Ababel decoy drones lost GPS guidance and command links, spiraling out of formation and dropping into the sea. The IRGC swarm began losing coordination almost instantly. Without central control, the fast boats started veering off course in the darkness. Some crossed into each other's paths, while others slowed or drifted blindly as their navigation screens filled with white static. 4:30 a.m. As the electronic fog began to clear and the path ahead opened, the destroyer tightened its defensive perimeter. Every weapon station was now focused outward, preparing for the final storm of steel. Raytheon's Phalanx CIWS close-in defense system, jokingly called the hot-tempered R2D2 by the crew, began its automatic search and track cycle. Its Q-band radar locked onto fast-moving objects closing in at high speed within the ship's inner defense zone. The M61A 120mm Vulcan cannon spun up, sending a continuous stream of armor-piercing rounds into the night at nearly 4,500 rounds per minute. Bright flashes lit up the darkness as the Phalanx system engaged the incoming one-way attack craft less than 500 meters from the hull. One after another, the closest threats were stopped before they could reach the destroyer. 4:35 a.m. At the same time, the ship's bow-mount 5-inch Mark 45 Mod 4 naval gun, built by BAE Systems, opened fire at a rapid pace. It used airburst rounds with multifunction fuses, programmed to activate just above the waterline. Each round created a wide cone of fragments across the surface, cutting off the last fast boats that had slipped past the CIWS perimeter. The strait, only minutes earlier filled with chaos and pressure, now fell under American control. The U.S. Navy had not simply endured the blockade. It had broken apart the core of the IRGC's maritime strategy with speed, coordination, and overwhelming system integration. Tehran's biggest gamble was undone by the U.S. advantage in fire control, battlefield networking, and electronic dominance. 4:45 a.m. The character of the operation changed completely. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer was no longer just defending itself. It had become the center of a coordinated counterstrike. High above the battle space, the Boeing P-8A Poseidon used its AN/APY-10 radar to cut through the confusion of spray, smoke, and gunfire. It identified the source of the assault: concealed missile sites and submarine support facilities carved deep into the limestone cliffs of Kesham Island. The coordinates were transmitted in real time to the A-10 Warthogs. The Warthogs returned for one final precision strike, this time carrying Raytheon GBU-12 Paveway 2 laser-guided bombs. Guided by targeting data from the Poseidon, the A-10s released their payloads with exact timing. The bombs struck the cave entrances with high accuracy, setting off secondary blasts from stored fuel and munitions. The hidden IRGC facilities collapsed under the force of the strikes, cutting off the remaining reserve units from the fight. 5 a.m. The blockade was broken. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer moved deeper into the main shipping lane, re-establishing control over the passage and leaving behind the wreckage of an operation that had collapsed almost as quickly as it began. Tehran's Operation Hormuz Gatekeeper had been dismantled in under 2 hours. The strategic leverage Iran hoped to gain, the ability to pressure the global oil supply through the Strait of Hormuz, disappeared into the morning haze. But the larger question remains: what if Iran had not chosen such a direct swarm attack? Had Tehran relied on a quieter strategy, using hidden mine placement and avoiding open confrontation, it might have forced the U.S. Navy into a long and exhausting clearance operation. That could have slowed maritime traffic, unsettled global markets, and created days or even weeks of uncertainty. Instead, by choosing open escalation, the IRGC gave the U.S. Navy exactly what it needed: visible targets, clear intent, and the legal and tactical space to respond with full force. Iran did not simply lose control of the sea lane, it lost one of its strongest geopolitical pressure tools. A single tactical miscalculation turned Tehran's greatest regional leverage into a swift and highly visible defeat.